Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's class, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 4. Without further ado, we'll start the class right now. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Privajikacharya Stotra Sadasi Shmaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Privajikacharya Stotra Sadasi Shmaris Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Charger Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kun Radha Kun Giri Gopadan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, Krishna Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Kanaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nityanamani Namaste Krishna Paraya Prabhupada Chitatman Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Narayana Namaskritya Narom Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Vadirayat Nashta Prayeshu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhagavatu Tamasnuke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, everybody. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 19, text 4. Sachintayan itam atashinoryata muneshu dokto nilitis tatakshakya tasadumene nachirena takshaka valam prasaktasya virukti karanam. Sachintayan itam atashinoryata muneshu dokto nilitis takshakakya sasadu mene nachirena takshaka nalam prasaktasya virakti karanam sachintayam istam atashinoryata muneshu tokto nirtistak takshakakya sasadu mene nachirena takshaka Nalam prasaktasya virakti karanam. Hare Krishna. You can try chanting.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sachintayam itham शृणोद यथा मुने सुतक्तो निरितिस तक्षकाख्या ससाधु मेनेन चिरेण तक्षका नलं प्रसक्तस्य विरक्ति कारणम्.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Anyone else? All right, word for word. Sa, he, the king. Chintayan, thinking. It's down like this. Ata, now. Ashrinod, heard. Yata, as. Mune, of the siege. Sutta Ukta, ordered by the sun. Niriti, death. Takshaka Akya, in relation with the snake bird. Sa, he, the king. Sadhu, well and good. Mene, accepted. Na, not. Chirena, very long time. Takshaka, snake bird. Analam, fire. Prasaktasya, for one who is too attached. Virakti, indifference. Karanam, the cause. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. While the king was thus repenting, he received the news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird occasioned by the curse spoken by the sage's son. The king accepted this as good news, for it would be the cause of his indifference toward worldly things. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Real happiness is achieved by spiritual existence or by cessation of the repetition of birth and death. One can stop the repetition of birth and death only by going back to Godhead. In the material world, even by attaining the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, one cannot get rid of the conditions of repeated birth and death. But still, we do not accept the path of attaining perfection. The path of perfection frees one from all material attachments, and thus one becomes fit to enter into the spiritual kingdom. Therefore, those who are materially poverty-stricken are better candidates than those who are materially prosperous. Maharaj Pariksit was a great devotee of our Lord and a bona fide candidate for entering into the kingdom of God. But even though he was so, his material assets as the emperor of the world were setbacks to perfect attainment of his rightful status as one of the associates of the Lord in the spiritual sky. As a devotee of our Lord, he could understand that the cursing of a Brahmana boy, although unwise, was a blessing upon him, being the cause of detachment from worldly affairs, both political and social. Shakyamuni also, after regretting the incident, conveyed the news to the king as a matter of duty so that the king would be able to prepare himself to go back to Godhead. Shakyamuni sent news to the king that foolish Shringi, his son, although a powerful Brahmana boy, unfortunately had misused his spiritual power by cursing the king unwarrantedly. The incident of the king's garlanding the Muni was not sufficient cause for being cursed to death. But since there was no way to retract the curse, the king was informed to prepare for death within a week. Both Shamkamuni and the king were self-realized souls. Shamkamuni was a mystic and Maharaj Pariksit was a devotee. Therefore, there was no difference between them in self-realization. Neither of them was afraid of meeting death. Maharaj Pariksit could have gone to the Muni to beg his pardon, but the news of the imminent death was conveyed to the king with so much regret by the Muni that the king did not want to shame the Muni further by his presence there. He decided to prepare himself for his imminent death and find out the way to go back to Godhead. The life of a human being is a chance to prepare oneself to go back to Godhead or to get rid of material existence, the repetition of birth and death. Thus, in the system of Varnashram Dham, every man and woman is trained for this purpose. In other words, the system of Varnashram Dharma is also known as Sanatan Dharma, or the eternal occupation. Yeah. Sorry, that's better. The system of Varnashram Dharma prepares a man for going back to Godhead, and thus a householder is ordered to go to the forest as a vanaprasth to acquire complete knowledge and then to take the sannyas prior to his and take sorry, not looking at this properly. Sannyas prior to his inevitable death. Pariksit Maharaj was fortunate to get a 7-day notice to meet his inevitable death. But for the common man, there is no definite notice, although death is inevitable for all. Foolish men forget this sure fact of death and neglect the duty of preparing themselves for going back to Godhead. They spoil their lives in animal propensities to eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. Such an irresponsible life is adopted by the people in the age of Kali because of a sinful desire to condemn Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection, for which the state is responsible. The state must employ revenue to advance these three items and thus educate the populace to prepare for death. The state which does so is the real welfare state. The state of India should better follow the examples of Maharaj Pariksit, the ideal executive head, than to imitate other materialistic states which have no idea of the kingdom of Godhead, the ultimate goal of human life. Deterioration of the ideals of Indian civilization has brought about the deterioration of civic life, not only in India, but also abroad. Oma Ginati Vidandasya, Gyana Ganashalakaya, Chakshu Amritam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Scha. Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sadvaitam Sabudutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Paramadi Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sundhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Sutani Mo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prima Padayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurati Chedamaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himabhiri Vachati Sundaraya Tasmi Mahaprima Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Hare Krishna. So, let's go back. The translation is, while the king was repenting, he received news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird occasioned by the curse spoken by the sage's son. The king accepted this as good news, for it would be the cause of his indifference towards worldly things. Hare Krishna. So, this is very indicative of the way a pure devotee who is in the material world thinks about life in the material world. So this plan of Krishna involved three main people, Maharaj Pariksit, Shringi, the Brahman's son, and the Brahmana himself, Shamakrishi. The aim of this from the Lord was actually to send Maharaj Pariksit back to Godhead. But the details of it involve things that we are familiar with in the material world. People get angry, and at the time they're angry, they think of some sort of reprisal, some sort of revenge, and then they do something that sometimes is inappropriate because they overreact and talk more about the punishment which is greater than in intensity than what has been committed. The sinful activity, the sinful act. This was the case for the Brahman son who got upset because he could tell of what had transpired between the king, his father, the sage, and the king Maharaj Pariksit. And now his father is come out of the trance and noticed what had happened and pointed out to his son that he had overreacted. It was not a good decision at all to curse such a pious king to die in 7 days. But the king was also lamenting what he had done. That so he couldn't. This is not the first time he's been hungry or thirsty, for that matter. So why did he react to a sage who was in meditation that way by putting a dead snake around his neck? And he knew that if you do wrong, there is reaction to it. And so in the text before this, the king was very much looking toward a situation where he would put this sin behind him once and for all, and even not have it affect his immediate family. And so he was talking about, well, I am the king. This has happened, and now I'm guilty. Maybe the sage really was in meditation, and I shouldn't have disturbed him in the way I did. And so I'd rather have whatever the reaction is to this activity of mine that's unfortunate come sooner than later. So that's why when the king was repentant in that way and was thinking about what could possibly happen to him, the news of his imminent death came, the uh, sage or the rishi, Shamkarishi, sent word to Maharaj Pariksit that this is what has happened. And he was very regretful that his son had done that. But then the king accepted this as good news because the king was thinking something of a reaction should happen for this to be just behind me. There you go. When we come to Krishna consciousness because of our faith in Krishna and associate with devotees and begin to learn Krishna consciousness and stay in Krishna consciousness, then by the mercy of Krishna, we will get attracted to a particular spiritual master. For us, because Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent guru for everybody, that it is good to take shelter of a spiritual master connected to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada's teachings are bona fide. The spiritual masters who are disciples or grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada go by his teachings. And Srila Prabhupada is giving so much mercy to us that we don't even have to chant 64 rounds, 16 rounds minimum chanting and obeying the four regulated principles. Srila Prabhupada says, guarantees us an opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is not only the right place to be, but the safest place to be also in our quest for going back to Godhead. So this situation now is that Maharaj Pariksit has received the news that he's going to be dying in 7 days. And it's going to be through the bite of a snake bird. Now, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that real happiness is achieved by spiritual existence or by cessation of repetition of birth and death. So we take the last one. When birth and death ceases, that means we're not living in the material world anymore. So birth and death means automatic transfer to the spiritual sky, to one of the Vaikuntha planets. And speaking about that, Srila Prabhupada has given us again the mercy of getting an opportunity to go to the farthermost and the most versatile of the Vaikuntha planets, Golok Vrindavan. Versatile in terms of the relationships that are there compared to the other Vaikuntha planets. So, repetition of birth and death, that occurs only in the material world. So, happiness, of course, the repetition of birth and death themselves are difficult. They are suffering conditions, suffering occurrences. So, once we get out of that, that should give us relief, that should give us happiness. So that's one reason Srila Prabhupada says real happiness is from cessation of the repetition of birth and death. Real happiness, Srila Prabhupada also says that is achieved by spiritual existence. We are in the material world, so there is material existence going on. As long as we have these physical bodies, we cannot shed material existence. But we also have our minds and our intelligence, and we have the choice to live a life involving spirituality. And the highest spirituality is to love God by serving him, serving his servants and servants who are the servants of the Lord. So devotional service, not expecting any payback and not stopping in the service generally. That is what's required. And Srila Prabhupada says real happiness can come from that. So people in the material world are saying that they have different ways of being happy. And yesterday, His Holiness Chandamali Swami took some time to to describe those. The happiness comes from spirituality, but different classes of people say that because the goal of life is to achieve lasting peace and happiness, that when they get a lot of material things, they'll be happy. There was one radio talk show host who has left his body some years back. His name was Rush Limbaugh. Had a huge contract, $280 million. I don't know for how long, but he was that the contract he signed. So, and he talked about it on the radio, unashamedly. It didn't make any difference to me. Everybody knew he was quite wealthy financially. So somebody asked him a question on the show because you could ask questions. Political stuff normally is what he deals with, but they asked questions pertaining to himself. They asked him, "So with all this wealth, are you happy?" And he paused a little bit and says, "Money allows you to buy practically anything you want to buy, but it cannot buy happiness for you." He is brutally honest, that kind of person. At least he came across that way. So getting many material things, which money can do, does not mean you become happy. In fact, there's a different kind of anxiety that comes with getting a lot of material things. One party mind may say, "Oh, I have this, I have this, I have this." Then a while, you're going to see that there's burden that comes from it. Hmm. Some other people say happiness is just a state of mind. Regardless of what you have, you could be rich, you could be poor, but it's just your mind, the state of mind. Well, the mind is not us. Hmm? If we have your mind control you, we're in trouble. We have to train the mind to do spiritual things. Now, some other people define happiness as you get a goal in life, I'm going to be like this, and be absorbed in that goal. And then while you're getting there, even the anticipation of achieving that goal can give us happiness. I mean, you strive, your body's working hard, but you see yourself arriving slowly at that goal that you set for yourself. And it could be a material goal. We're talking about that. And when you get there, you're going to be very happy. So you think that's the way. Some people also see happiness as, well, a quick fling with a man or woman, usually sexual experience, and they think that's happiness. Mm-hmm. And some other people work for others' benefits. Mm-hmm. You go work and give others, people who are in a more challenged state materially, they get helped. They also think that brings happiness. Mm-hmm. Now, some people say that things can give happiness, but it depends on our emotion. Happiness is another emotion. But scripturally, from the scriptures, happiness is for one who has withdrawn from materialism and is focused on serving Krishna in pure love. Mm-hmm. The scriptures also says that there's somebody, a few people are like that. They are totally gone mentally, just fools. And they cannot relate to anything in the material world, much less anything spiritual. So they just basically hallucinate. But because they're disconnected from good sense, they think they're happy. It's like a state of drunkenness. Can't relate to anything. Now, these two clearly, happiness comes from, as Srila Prabhupada says, connecting with service to Krishna in pure love. So real happiness is achieved by spiritual existence. Srila Prabhupada made that very clear. Okay, so when we are trying to be happy, it's only through focus on the different aspects of service to the Lord. That's what brings real happiness at all times. And if we stay away from that, then we would begin to allow anxiety to come into our lives. So as long as we are happy, as long as we're determined to serve and serve devotees, serve Guru, and serve the deity, happiness will come. And this is internal happiness. and it is not temporary. It lasts, goes on and on and on. But people who in the material world are doing a lot of things to try to make money to be happy. And it brings so much anxiety. It's like a man who is carrying a heavy load on his back. And the load is weighing on one side of his back. So he thinks that by adjusting the load on the back, they're going to be happy. So they try to do things by, it's almost like requesting someone to shift the load, and position it nicely, evenly on his back so that he can carry it properly. Mm? So that adjustment they think will bring happiness. That's what people strive for, material success. Then they realize happiness is not there. There's one, I would say, famous actor. His name is Will Smith. Done a lot of movies. And he's now relating to a friend who's a devotee and a disciple of Srila Radhana Maharaj. And this guy, his name is Jay Shetty, talked with Will Smith and began to describe the wisdom from Bhagavad Gita in a very conversational way to Will Smith. Now, Will is very wealthy. And then Will had a realization, and he said, so we thought we were going to be happy by having a lot of money, but actually, life is really a trick. It's like God is tricking us. You look this for this, look for this, look for this outside of being his servant. Then you go through all kinds of trouble, but you think you're going to be okay. But it's actually a trick. So he used the word a trick. When I saw the video of it, I started laughing. I said, yeah, you're slowly beginning to get it. It is only spiritual life that will make us really happy. Therefore, we should perform service to the Lord, but perform focused service to the Lord. Every time that we're doing any kind of devotional service, we should do like our life depends on it, because it does. But look at it like a life or death situation. I must do it to the best of my ability. That is required. Hmm? And when we do that, then in staying in this spiritual life, serving the Lord, then the material blockages towards real happiness get removed. It's spiritual life, service that uproots all of these material blockages. Hmm? And when we do it constantly, because that's required, then one layer after another layer after another layer after another layer after layer of material enjoyment, those also get removed. And it's interesting how that happens because it starts with the mind. Krishna will give us, each one of us, good reason to stay away from material enjoyment. And Krishna is an expert at it. So everybody that takes service seriously, constantly serving and serving with great focus, what happens is material enjoyments that we know are going to keep us in the material world with the constant repetition of birth and death. Krishna begins to get us less and less interested in that. And every time it's through the mind, we give you a reason, a very good reason that you can relate to. Why am I being attached to this kind of thing? And then the reasons come so and so and so and so and so. For that reason, I don't care about it anymore. Hmm? Sometimes it's a very simple thing that maybe is some sort of game that people is very popular and many people just get attached to that. Mm? And it chews up sometimes the things that you need to be doing spiritually because that time is there for you just get so attached to it. After a while, the Lord will give you a good reason. Why am I even watching all of this? Hmm? What am I gaining from it? Am I really happy? No. Sometimes I'm happy if my team wins, and I'm very depressed if it doesn't. Hmm? So why am I doing this to myself? So Slowly, 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 different reasons come, and then we begin to stay away from so-called material enjoyment. Mm. And when that's happened, the first thing is you begin to feel peaceful. Mm. And then from the peaceful situation, you become joyful. And that grows because in spirituality, when the happiness, the internal happiness begins to come, it actually grows and grows and grows. So it can go from regular peace to joyfulness and then to ecstasy. Mm-hmm. And then you feel very, very, very happy, or as the dictionary likes to explain it, bliss. And that bliss keeps increasing all over time. And once you get into this blissful state, then sense gratification has no place in our life, literally. And as Maharaj Shabade was telling his sons in the fifth canto, fifth chapter of Shrimad Bhagavatam, we should stay away from sense gratification. The senses must be used, must be engaged in serving the Lord. And that's what the senses need to be satisfied. When we use the senses to do material things, we don't feel a sense of satisfaction. If anything, some small, as we call it, chapasukha, very small amount of satisfaction comes, or what we call happiness, and then it's gone. Hmm? So there's no lasting situation. So we should be hungry to succeed in Krishna consciousness by going through the processes of hearing, chanting, remembering, praying, offering obeisances, all of the 9 processes, as many of them as we can do, we do that in our lives. Mm-hmm. And be determined, be hungry to succeed, do the best that we can in Krishna consciousness, and that happiness will come. So material satisfaction should not fool us. At best, it's only temporary. So when we stay away from that so-called material happiness, then we will be all right. Maharaj Pariksit believed in Krishna. Maharaj Pariksit was born through the Pandavas. And Maharaj Pariksit knew of what Krishna had done for the Pandavas. He had so much to go on. He was a pure devotee of the Lord. And therefore, when that curse came, he said, all right, so we'll take it. We'll take it as a blessing. Now, how many of us get reverses and take it as a blessing? Usually it's very difficult for us. We're dealing with the fallout from it. Materially, whatever distress or pain, sometimes physical pain, sometimes it's emotional pain. But Maharaj Pariksit looked at it and said, well, I've been cursed because of what I did, but I think it's a blessing from the Lord. So I'll accept it. Hmm? So we need to learn from these. Hmm? Those who are materially, see, Papa says, those who are materially poverty stricken are better candidates than those who are materially prosperous. Why is that? Those who are materially poverty stricken are better candidates for going back to the spiritual kingdom than those who are materially prosperous. I would like to ask you to unmute yourself and have some discussion about this point. Why are those who are materially poverty stricken better candidates than those who are materially prosperous? What do you think?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
I'm not sure, but is it maybe because they're satisfied with less and they're less attached because they don't have things, so they're in a better situation because they've learned that happiness does not rely on what they have. Although life, if somebody is in poverty, life can be hard on some levels. But I don't know. That's just a guess.
But it's a very good guess. It's a very good guess. There actually are no wrong answers. You can look at it from different angles. And so the angle which you look at it from, yes, they don't have much, so they think they're okay. But then you said, well, if they don't have much, that poverty may be a problem. Huh? So yeah, it has both sides. But thank you very much for bringing the idea. Any others that want to talk about? The question is, Srila Prabhupada is saying those who are materially poverty stricken are better candidates than those who are materially prosperous. And
Hare
we're
Krishna
asking,
Guruji, Dandat Pranam, Jai Sri Prabhupada.
Jai Srila
Yeah.
Prabhupada, Jai.
Those who are materially not much good, they are better candidate. That's the question, right? Why they are the better candidate?
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, because who have already invested in material, it's hard for them to detach from it because they already invested, and it's very hard. But who haven't tested and don't had any inclination or the possession, for them there's no point to losing it. They haven't attached yet, so it's better attached to the Lord, so that that's their fresh attachment than the living somewhere. So for the
Okay.
materialistic, yeah, for materialistic personality who like work hard and accumulate, giving up, is like giving up all his investment, his energy, and what he thought of is very hard for to come back. It's a reverse journey.
Very good point. Those who don't have much, they don't have to worry too much. But then those who have a lot, they may be attached to it. That's one of the key reasons, the attachment to material things. The attachment because you have the material things. Mhm. So before I ask for more, there's chat. Uh, in the chat, Xavier Prabhu is saying, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, God Shri Prabhupada. Is this similar to demigod's position, where it's almost like there are more distractions with more material prosperity? Okay, you put it in a question form, and so I'm asking why, but yeah, demigods, they're in that situation too. And that's been mentioned in the scriptures. Mm. There have been times when demigods are in a situation where they could go back to the spiritual world, but they rather ask Krishna, please restore our position for us. We go back to the heavenly planets, but the heavenly planets are still in the material world, which means there's some attachment to being there. Hmm? So, dear Krishna Prabhu also has posted something in the chat. Please accept Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisance. It's all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Just like one who's got a taste of devotion, they cannot lose it easily. Similarly, those who have tasted, I think, material opulence, it's more difficult for them to detach from it. Yes, that's also another angle. Hmm? It's more difficult to detach from material things, and that's why that attachment keeps them in the material world. Especially those who are quite wealthy, when they're leaving the body and they begin to think about the things that they have that they're very attracted to, still attached to, that are material, they stand the risk of coming back to the material world in another body to satisfy whatever they were thinking of. A poor person doesn't have much to have to be attached to, although sometimes attachment comes to. Be surprised at poor people and what they sometimes get attached to. But we have to be careful about our attachments. Any more?
There is aspect, I was just thinking, aspect of their false ego, because they thought that the righteous process or the ultimate process is gaining the material thing and enjoying, and that's it. If they realize, oh, this is not it, then their false ego gets hurt, and it's hard for them to give that ego and come back on the spiritual platform.
So false ego is also another reason, especially for those who are wealthy. The ego can be quite big because of the wealth. And what happens for many people who are wealthy is this plays on their mind. I'm in a better situation than others. The fact that they compare themselves to others makes them feel, oh, I'm in a better situation. Therefore, I'm more satisfied. See what I have, and see when I drive to these places here, these people don't have what I have. So I'm better off, thinking that they're better off. And that is what begins to fan the attachment to those things.
Yeah.
And then it becomes more difficult for them
I
when
was
the
just
time
thinking,
comes to go.
I was just thinking, even they realize giving up their, they are losing could be a tough time for them. Even they realize, hey, there's a ultimate path is somewhere else. And say, hey, what did I do? I'm stupid up till now. What I did.
It is difficult. That's why we need association to remind each other about this. Everywhere you go in a temple, now we'll bring it home to the different temples, even in ISKCON. There are people who are very serious. They jump at every service that comes. And they're piling one spiritual credit after another. And then there are some too that are still thinking that church, temple is like coming to church and here a little bit and going back home and doing the same things that we used to do, which means we're still attached to materialism. That will not get us to grow and go back to Godhead. Now, one of the things we need to remember is Kali Yuga is coming. The Kali Yuga is, they not Kali Yuga coming. Kali Yuga is already here, but the intensity of problems in Kali Yuga, that's going to be experienced in the future. The intensity of problems. Things are going to get worse. So, Srila Prabhupada advised my spiritual master, Bhakti Maharaj. At that time, he was Bhakta John. He had just come to Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada, in one lecture, he said, Kali Yuga, we are 5,000 years into it. It's a total of 432,000 years. So we got about 427,000 years more to go. And the situation gets worse and worse and worse. So then Bhakta John, who became my Guru Maharaj later on when he joined society, asked Srila Prabhupada, just wanting to hear that this is what Srila Prabhupada had said. So it was just asking him to repeat. So you said Kali Yuga is 5,000, we're 5,000 years to Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada said yes, and that means there are 427,000 years to go. The things are going to get really, really bad. So why not jump out of this situation while you have that time and things aren't that bad? That was the advice that Srila Prabhupada gave in his response. And we are in the same situation. Do not be attached to material things. We can't do anything with them. We don't need them in the spiritual world when we're leaving. So the attachment should not be there. And Maharaj Pariksit had so much because he was an emperor. You talk about wealth, so much was there. But he looked at his situation of being cursed as, okay, I'm going to die. And if you're going to die in 7 days, what do you need all of these material things for then? So that was his idea. And he planned for it immediately. Well, before the 7 days, he left. He left the kingdom to his sons. He left the administration to them. He got out. He went to the bank of the Ganges and he began to meditate. And Shukadeva Goswami met up with him and he asked the questions about what he was supposed to do, a person that's about to die. And in answering the questions, Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. So he could have good connection to spiritual and detachment from material so he could go home. So his example is one that we should follow. Even while we're still in this material world and have whatever that we have for material things, we should use them in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also understand there's no need to be attached, because the more you attach, the more you're going to think about it at the time of death. And if you think about it at the time of death, not going back to the spiritual world, you're going to come to, again, deal with the material world. So every reversal that happens in everybody's life, any disappointment, look at what good can come from it. When we're surrendered to Krishna, there's a lesson to learn from everything that happens. If we're not surrendered to Krishna, then we're making our own decisions. And as my Guru Maharaj likes to say, then it's business as usual. Business as usual means Krishna is letting you do whatever you want to do. But if you surrender to Krishna, everything is happening through Krishna because you prayed that you want it that way. Then even those things that are challenging, you go through it anyway because you know there are lessons to learn. And you will also see the hand of Krishna in protection when these reversals come. When difficult things come, and you see how Krishna leads the devotee out of it, you will see Krishna is there for us. And so that also would increase our faith in the Lord. So see reverses that way. Lessons to be learned from it, and see Krishna's hand in protection from it. Prahlad Maharaj, he went through a lot. Hiranyakashipu, the father, wanted to kill him in so many ways, but Krishna protected him. So if we take Krishna conscious service seriously and be determined to keep with it no matter what happens, then we will be the kind of candidate where the Lord will see us, the Lord will protect us, and even through reversals, he will bring us back to Godhead eventually. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for listening. Now, I know we've had a discussion before, but any takeaways or other discussions that you'd like to start, please unmute yourself and let's talk a little more. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance as always, Prabhupada. I just came the last half an hour. I apologize.
No
Two things are coming to my mind when you spoke about the materially poverty-stricken are more beneficial than the spiritually. What's the word? The spiritually.
Oh, that's materially opulent.
I'm sorry.
It's
what's the question
easier.
again?
The materially. I was just trying to end your sentence for you. That materially poverty-stricken, it's easier for them to go to the spiritual world or take spirituality more seriously compared to those who have a lot materially.
Okay, so I'm reminded of 2 points that's coming to my mind, actually 3 points, one is Radhanath Swami's, well, it's from Prabhupada, but I've heard it a lot from Radhanath Swami, simple living, higher thinking, where Prabhupada says, the more simpler our life. And I think sometimes as devotees, we forget what the term simple means. Sometimes we think simple means having less, making our life simple, but actually simple also means material detachment. That's what simple means. Like the less we have the less we are materially detached to our senses, our material desires, our dreams, our wants and wishes, then life becomes more simple. And the more simpler it is, then we focus more on Krishna. So I was reading a quote by Srila Prabhupada yesterday, I believe, I think it was yesterday, where Srila Prabhupada says that we should be thinking of Krishna 24/7, but in order to do that, we have to have a simple life. And in order to have a simple life, we have to minimize or, be materially detached from sense gratification, dreams, wants, wishes, this and that. And really, because then only we have more space, as they say, more RAM, that's what I call it, in the brain to think of Krishna. If not, the brain memory gets used up of what to do next, where to go next, how to get this, how to get that. But if we don't do that, then we increase our RAM in the brain to focus more on Krishna. So I was really thinking about how we can, the importance of simple living, which will make us higher thinkers of Krishna. And then I'm thinking about, the Amish, right? They live a life of complete simplicity. Like if we were to lose power now, every one of us are going to go crazy. But the Amish live like not, but when the power goes out, nothing ever happened. They go about business as it is, you know. But if we don't have cell phones, we say, oh my God, I can't check in. Like we go, anything that shuts down, we just go crazy. But the Amish are like, we just operate as usual because they have a very simple living. And then I was thinking, me reminded of so many devotees in ISKCON, proper disciples that I'm reminded of, you know, they have given up so much materially down to the stage of poverty stricken, but they only depend on the Lord. I mean, our GBC is one fine example. Completely depend on the Lord, and they put a smile on their face. So I think that the more we think of such exalted devotees who have really put their life at stake, lack of a better word, to be materially poverty stricken and have so much faith in the Lord, we should pray to them and aspire and then get inspired by them, so that we can one day increase the RAM in our minds for Krishna and less on the material sense gratification. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an important point. Simple living and high thinking. We've heard that so many times in Krishna consciousness. You know, it's a buzzword or buzz sentence for devotees. The key, though, is that we're not bashing people who are wealthy, even through karma, who are wealthy. But what we're saying is that what you have, you use it directly or indirectly to serve Krishna. That's the important thing. If you serve with your material things, you serve Krishna and you serve devotees very nicely, that gives you detachment from those material things also. When you have a lot of material things and this is all for me and my family only, then that's detachment. And it's going to be very difficult to break away from it at the time of death. But when you're used to giving and opening up, whatever you have with the idea of serving devotees, then you means you think of devotees and how to serve them, and you're using what Krishna has given you, material opulence or wealth, to do that. So since you're thinking of devotees, when you're dying, devotees will also, in your deathbed, they will also reciprocate to you by coming around you and helping you to remember the name of the Lord by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And it will help your detachment to go to the Lord. We're going to get the best of anything that we can ever hope for in the spiritual world. So nobody should let wealth fool them. Use it in service of the Lord, directly and indirectly. And then you get to a better situation, far better than what material world can give you in opulence. Hare Krishna. Any other comments?
Yes, I was thinking on Mataji's point, the devotees, elevated devotees, who has given up the voluntary, renounced the material things. They are like renounced. They are not the poverty stricken. Poverty stricken who don't have anything material, but who has voluntarily given up, they are renounced.
Yes, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
If they made the decision not to have those things and they don't miss those things or aspire to get those things, yeah, that's definitely detachment. But a person who also has things because their karma initially brought, but they take those things too and just give so much to Krishna consciousness, they are also detached in both ways.
Another point Srila Prabhupada gives is that how one can give it easily the material things by the higher taste. One develop the higher taste in spirituality, the material lower taste will go away automatically.
Yes, that's Paramdrisvana Vatiti, replacing the lower with the higher. And also in the chat, Dear Krishna made the point, the key word is taste, the rasa.
Yes, rasa.
Get away from material taste and then attach more to spiritual taste, and so much happiness comes that way. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Any last comments or takeaways?
I think, and another point, those who are materially poverty stricken are beneficial because sometimes the situation is created where they are forced to take shelter of the Lord. So much. when everything fails, then they have no choice but to run to Krishna. So those who are materially poverty stricken, they're beneficial because, of course, it depends when they realize it, but once they realize that whatever they try to do, nothing is, adding up, then it's like Draupadi. She just threw up her hands. She just threw up her hands. So, like, when we try everything that we can to somehow fix the situation materially, but still we are hit poverty stricken materially, then we benefit more because we run to the Lord and we take shelter of the spiritual, and the Supreme Lord and spiritual Master. And then we really see the Krishna magic working.
Yeah, desperation, material desperation can also make us, get closer to the Lord. It's just in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 4 types of people that come to the Lord, and one of them is the materially desperate person. But the idea is that once they come and they get settled in some level of comfort, that they should not, go back to being attached to material things, and it's a failure. So definitely, that's
Mataji mentioned that categories artho, the 4 types of devotee: artho, artharthi, jigyasu, and gyani. Artho is like who has tried things and did not work, like they are in so much distress, now they turn to Krishna.
Yeah,
that's artho category.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any last point? If not, then thank you very much for the lively discussion we had today, and thank you for allowing me to do the service. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sunnivaevacha patitana pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. And hopefully we'll see you on Sunday, those that's close to us. See you on Sunday for the Sunday program.
Yes, and just reminding that we have a very special guest speaker, His Holiness Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj. So please do make it a point, if to clear the driveways, salt the driveways, do whatever we can to make it to the temple this Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.